Cornelia Meyer is a macroeconomist, commodity expert, and chief executive officer of Meyer Resources. She joins us now from Bern in Switzerland. Cornelia, a shock with the UAE leaving OPEC. What do you make of it?
Well, good afternoon, Adrian, and thank you very much for having me. Well, yes, I was startled, but the UAE has for some time not been that happy because what OPEC does, its mandate is not to support the price. Its mandate is to keep markets adequately supplied. So during COVID, and when there was much oil on the market, obviously, the quotas were upped. And the UAE had invested so much in expanding its capacity, so they were not happy about being curtailed, their production being curtailed by the quotas. And they think by 2027 they can produce 5 million barrels a day. Now they're producing about 3.5 million barrels a day. So they have bit of the spare capacity. So I guess they think it will buy them freedom once this is over. But until this is over, there's also, like everybody else, have most of their production on the wrong side of the Strait of Hormuz.
To what extent, though, Cornelia, was there a political aspect to all of this? The UAE has criticized the lack of support that it got from Gulf partners during Iran's attacks. Is this to do with geopolitics as much as it's to do with oil?
I think it has mainly to do with oil. It may also have to do some with geopolitics. And, you have seen that, the UAE has been sort of dividing itself out a little bit of some of its GCC neighbors. And it's been particularly with the big GCC power, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's been in many of the regional conflicts on the other side of the conflicts from the kingdom. And that is not helpful. Personally, I think it's a pity they're leaving. Personally, I also think that once we're through this conflict, it will do one thing. It will insert more volatility, because OPEC has really done a fine job in terms of smoothing the waters and adding production when it was needed and taking it off when there was too much production, like, for instance, during COVID. So I think it's in terms of the stability of oil markets, it is not necessarily the best move, but OPEC will survive. OPEC has survived much more.
Cornelia, if the UAE can now produce freely, does that open the door for other producers to reconsider their commitment to OPEC quotas? To what extent might there be a sort of, well, I'll have some of that too?
Well, I sort of doubt it, because OPEC has been quite instrumental, as I said, in evening out when there was too much or too little oil on the market, and particularly with the US being so strong with all the shale oil production that they have, and with a lot of the non-OPEC producers like Brazil, like Guyana, like Argentina, and so on, also being quite strong. I think most of the OPEC members will see validity in having a coherent group.
Okay, longer term, if producers start to prioritize market share over quota discipline, what does that do for OPEC? Does it fundamentally weaken its ability to manage both supply and prices?
Well, I think that, as I said, OPEC doesn't see itself as somebody who manages prices. They see themselves as somebody who manages supply. I think there will be discussions, and OPEC discussions behind the scenes. There have always been strong discussions. But I think most of the OPEC member countries and also OPEC Plus see validity in working together. That doesn't mean that the discussions are not going to to be quite loud, but internally. But I think it's given where we are, there is validity in having OPEC, and most OPEC countries see that. The UAE is a little bit the odd man out here because there are, as you mentioned, some of the political issues, and there's also they've invested so much in more capacity that they just want to monetize it.
Cornelia, what does this mean for you and me? When the Strait of Hormuz eventually reopens and supply normalizes, does the UAE's decision ultimately point to lower prices at the pump or simply more uncertainty?
Simply, in my view, and I haven't run it through my model yet, but in my view, at this point, prima facie, it just adds to volatility. And, volatility is a difficult thing. Imagine you're an airline and you don't know from one day to the next whether your jet fuel is worth 30% of the operating budget or 70% of the operating budget. You want stability.
Cornelia, it's always great to talk to you. Many thanks indeed for being with us. Cornelia Meyer there in Bern in Switzerland.
Thank you very much indeed.